Well, hello and welcome to another You Can Do It Too. So this project I've already started on. I just thought I'd tell you about it a little bit. We bought one of these giant bean bags. It's a bit of a luxury one-off purchase, only about 3 or 4 years ago. But it turns out to be not very well made, and the pieces of vinyl that it's made of are starting to crack and disintegrate. So really it's past its best, but it's something we love, so I wanted to make a kind of replacement for it. So I'd rather use leather because it's more durable, it's a bit flexible, it's not going to crack like this, and you can look after it, you can use leather feed on it. So what we've done is made some patchwork patches here. Now these are they're recycled, they're from old leather jackets basically. We had a few and they're no longer fashionable or useful, and it was just a shame to throw them away. We bought a couple from charity shops for £4 or £5, and actually there's masses of leather on them, so it's been a great thing. So I've cut them into these large squares, about 1 centimetre bigger than the square that I need here. Easiest way to do that is to make a template. And then you can just cut your pieces out of the larger bit of leather. The next thing is to sew them together. It's quite a large beanbag, and so each side is 5 panels by 5 squares. Each panel is made up there of 25 pieces. So in all, it's 150 of these squares needed for the beanbag, so it's quite a few. Predominantly black. We've found that's just what we've sort of come across when we've been sourcing the material for these. But we did find a blue suede jacket here. That came from a relative, I think. And then there's a few brown bits in here as well. So I want to evenly distribute them within the panel. So the easiest thing, the black ones we've got loads of, put them to one side. So the easiest thing is to just kind of spread them out and mock it up first, because I don't really want sort of 2 blues next to each other or anything that looks like a regular pattern. So in each sort of 5 columns, I'm just going to spread these. And so that's mocked out what I want to do. Now because I've arranged this pattern, I want to assemble it in the right order. So I'm just going to put a mark on one row. This is really good stuff, Taylor's chalk. It's quite cheap and you can draw on. I'm going to tend to do it on the back anyway, but it rubs off and doesn't leave a mark. I'm just going to put like a 1 or a slash on the back of these just to mark them. And then because this is the first one, I'm going to put an additional, so I make like a cross on that, so I know which side to attach these all to. Tough. So I'm going to start, because this needs to be quite strong, because it's a beanbag, people will be sitting on it. I'm going to do is to sew backwards, as it were, and then turn it round, and then go the other way, so that when someone's sitting on it, the strain isn't all on one line of stitches. So I bought this antique sewing machine off eBay. It's been absolutely great. It was not that expensive, but it's really tough and it will go through this leather. You might find that your modern electric machines just haven't got enough welly for it. So just put the foot down, just remembering this margin here. That's it, and then so when we get to the edge, lift the presser foot and turn it round. So you'll see we've already kind of locked that in. And they do slide around a bit, being leather, and the different thicknesses don't help either. Then when we get to this end, again, park the needle down, and we'll turn it round and just do a few stitches backwards. That's it. And you can see that's a nice strong join there. So that's your bottom. This is your bottom square. So this is the next one. And what I've done is to make another template. This is the actual size of the finished square. So we're going to lay that onto that stitch line on that side, and then mark with the tailor's chalk just along the edge. And then when the next one's stitched on that line, the finished square will be the right size. Now we need to sew the strips together. What we'd normally do if this was material would be to iron these creases flat, so that when we sew the next bit on, it will just go on flat. But because this is leather, it's very springy and it won't stay there. So what I'm going to do is just to stitch along there. It will reinforce it, but also hold those pieces flat like that. And then when we sew them together, it'll be a lot easier to do. So it's just a case of just along the edge, not about ½ centimetre in. Yeah, and that flattens that very nicely, so that when we're joining this next piece on, it's not going to be all bulky. So once these strips are all sewn together using our template, it's time to sew them together themselves. So I've got the mark that I made on the backs of the bottom row, so that I know that when they're sewn together, they'll all match up. Now for these, actually opting to pin them together, because I want the squares to all sort of line up. And the problem is, especially with this different textures of leather, is that they sew at different rates and it can get a bit out of sync. So leather, it is quite tough, but you just have to find a way. Just sort of pin one on each square. So just line those seams up. Yeah, it's not too bad. And just make sure these are lined up all the way along. When we get to the second row, and we've already got 2 on, such as that, we need to remember to mark across with a template so that all the squares are the same. Otherwise at the end we'll find that it doesn't all match. And that gives you a stitch line. Mark that all the way along, sew all the pieces together. 6 panels done. That's 150 squares all sewn in, and I've gone round all the edges to make sure that they're flat. It also gives a little bit of extra strength. So now I've got to sew them all together. There's a couple of things. One for the side panels, because when you flop down on the beanbag, you get quite a lot of pressure and like air pressure inside, and we don't want to burst the seams. So what we've done is to take a pocket section from one of the jackets. So on 2 sides, I've actually got a little vent built in. So, and that was with no effort really, just a matter of cutting it out. And then on the bottom, because you need to be able to get your beans in and out, this is the zipper section from another jacket, and it's really sturdy. It's got poppers here, so that when you're scuffing along the floor, you're not going to accidentally unzip it. And that will gain entry to the beanbag, and also we're going to have to sew it inside out so that we can turn it back through there. So that's great. The bag that we're replacing has got an inner bag of cotton as an extra line of defence as well, and that's quite a good idea because these little beans will pop out through any gaps, and hopefully it should make it easier to do. So all I've got to do is to line up the sides and get sewing. So this is the moment of truth. Been around everything. It's taken 2 of us to get it through the machine. Particularly on the corners it's difficult because you're dealing with multiple layers. But as far as I can see, we've caught everything. Make sure the zip's open before you sew everything together. And I'm just going to pull it through. Feels good. that's looking pretty good. It's going to look like some sort of Italian designer beanbag. So I'll just stuff the beans in and see what it looks like. Yeah, so from this one battered and worn beanbag to designer leather patchwork beanbag. Well, it's just one thing for it. That's to give it a try. Very pleased with that project. Just remember, you can do it too. Please subscribe to my channel. Lots of interesting things for you to make and do. And any questions, just drop me a line. I'm more than happy to communicate with you. Thank you.